Sri Majeed Memon. He is a well-known parliamentarian and much sought-after practitioner on all branches of law, particularly on the criminal side. Although based in Mumbai, Sri Memon is a frequent presence in the world over, including the Supreme Court of India as well. Sri Memon did his graduation in economics and political science from the Bombay University. Thereafter, he joined the Government Law College, Mumbai, for his study of law. Incidentally, this humble self is also a product of Government Law College, Mumbai. After obtaining his law degree in the year 1972, Sri Majeed Memon is practicing law uninterruptedly and creditably from the year 1973 onwards. During his 47 years of practice in criminal law, he has had the privilege of attending and conducting some very important, sensitive and sensational criminal matters in the UK, USA, UAE, South Africa, and Portugal. Sri Memon has made his mark as a great criminal lawyer, having conducted trials throughout India in cases involving serious charges. Sri Memon had the greatest privilege of being closely associated with, if not a votary of, Justice Krishna Iyer. In the year 2014, Sri Memon was elected to the Rajya Sabha from the state of Maharashtra, and he served as a member of parliament for 6 years till April 2020. During the above period, the nation found an enterprising, innovative, and glittering parliamentarian in Sri Memon, who has contributed to the Indian Parliament in matters of judicial reforms, prison reforms, police reforms, etc. For about 4 years, he served as a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee for Law and Justice, and he was also a member of the Consultative Committee for the Ministry of Law and Justice. Sri Memon has also been a well-known human rights activist who has always stood for social causes and fights against injustice done to weaker sections of the society. Sri Memon, during his outstanding career, has been invited by various bar associations, law colleges, law universities in the country to deliver lectures and guide young lawyers and law students. Sri Memon has been an opinion maker on varied subjects of law through the print and electronic media. May I now request Sri Majeed Memon to enter upon the solemn business of rendering the inaugural address. Over to you, Sri Majeed Memon.
Thank you very much, Justice Ramakumar. Let me first greet you on your birthday. May God bless you with good health so that you continue to do this good work for long, long years. Honorable, as Chief Patron of VR Krishna Iyer Studies Wing Calicut, I congratulate you for inaugurating this wing today on this auspicious day. And I would also greet Advocate M. Asokan, whom I happened to hear for the first time. And since he rightly said that we had no occasion to meet in the past, but I think I have heard him today, and I would remember him now. There's no difficulty on that count at all. All those honorable judges, former judges, members of the bar, law students, bureaucrats, and all these ladies and gentlemen who are participants in this discussion today. Some of them are not even visible to me, and some of them I could see and even identify, recognize a few of them. Say good evening to all of you and a very happy Diwali and incidentally a happy New Year. Namaskaram. It is my proud privilege to be delivering Justice VR Krishna Iyer Memorial Lecture on the eve of his 105th birth anniversary. I express my deep gratitude to Justice VR Krishna Iyer Legal Studies Wing of Calicut for having extended to me this great honor. Before me, as a matter of fact, since after Justice Iyer's demise, a few legal luminaries have delivered Krishna Iyer Memorial Lecture in the past 6 years. And some of you have been heard speaking about Justice Krishna Iyer, though briefly. In fact, Justice Krishna Iyer is an ocean of law and justice. And if we have to even pick up very selective quotations from all his work that he has done throughout his life, I think it would take hours and hours for us, and it would be difficult for us to drop or to choose which portion must be highlighted. He has had such great contribution to our criminal justice system in particular that I think he would be remembered by posterity for years and ages to come. In the last 7 decades of the functioning of our Supreme Court, about 200 judges have contributed in interpreting statutes and the Constitution and evolving law in India. Some of them rose to eminence to be remembered for their rich contribution and excellence in the discharge of their duties as judges. Justice Iyer ranks among the very few whose contribution in the making of Indian judiciary as a formidable institution is remarkable, unmatchable, and outstanding. There is a lot of talk about these days about cases relating to contempt of court. We have been hearing, reading in the newspaper, watching on the television for the past some time, right since 2018, when 4 learned Supreme Court judges held a press conference unprecedentedly and very bluntly criticized the very functioning of the Vigilance Institute. Since then, we have seen Prashant Bhushan prosecuted for contempt. Now some artist is being prosecuted for contempt. In that context, let me begin. One day, the people of this country will rise up and say that we don't want this magnificent red stone edifice on the Curzon Road because it is seen to be counterproductive, and in turn, the high courts. In this country, the Jesuses are getting crucified and the Barbases are very much upheld, thanks perhaps to the judiciary. Our whole judicial approach has a certain independence from all civilized behavior. In fact, to speak very frankly, the Indian judiciary is non-est. These are golden words of none other but Justice VR Krishna Iyer. I am quoting him. He spoke in a symposium which Justice Ramkumar also referred to briefly. It was Approach to Judicial Reforms, which was organized on the premises of Kerala High Court sometime in November 1981. And Justice Krishna Iyer was the speaker on the occasion of Silver Jubilee celebration of the Kerala High Court. And it was this particular occasion when Justice Krishna Iyer was so blunt and bold in criticizing the very administration of justice. Now, as rightly pointed out briefly by our friend, Justice Ramakrishna, the one Vincent Panikigulangara was among the audience, and he took exception to the expression of Justice Krishna Iyer and thought that perhaps the speech was scandalous of the authority of the Supreme Court and all the high courts of the country. He chose to proceed for contempt against Justice VR Krishna Iyer and sought sanction from Attorney General, which was granted. And thereafter, the petition came up for hearing for contempt, and the accused was no other than Justice VR Krishna Iyer. The petition came up for hearing before the bench comprising of the then Chief Justice of Kerala, Subramaniam Poti, and Justice K.S. Puripurnam, who were faced with a unique problem to deal with the expression of Justice VR Krishna Iyer. The accused in this case, Justice Iyer, was known to all the judges, including the 2 decoring that bench. As a rule, no judge shall hear the case in which he is likely to be biased. Thus, in this rule, which can bear no exception, faced with an unparalleled situation, as there was no other alternative, the case was heard by the bench. It was ironical that one person who had done the most in the history of post-independent India to establish the rule of law and enhance the prestige and respect of judicial system in India stood accused of scandalizing the Supreme Court and the High Courts, the very institution he had nurtured with his sweat, blood, and tears. But what the judges said in their judgment throws light on the great esteem and respect enjoyed by the great judge. And I quote the observation of the bench. The citation was given by Justice Ramkumar a bit earlier. I quote, "An erudite judge illumines the pages of law reports. He earns the respect and admiration of the members, the bar, and the bench. The legal fraternity may remember him as his reputation survives to posterity. But rarely is such a judge widely known outside the world of law. Erudition coupled with an honest missionary zeal in the cause of social uplift gives a different image to a judge and makes him live not only..." Is there any problem? Am I audible?
Oh, yes, you're audible.
Erudition coupled with an honest missionary zeal in the cause of social uplift gives a different image to a judge and makes him live not only the books of law, but also in the hearts of men. Shri Justice Iyer is known and respected by the public of this country. His tenure of office as a judge of this court, later as a member of the Law Commission, and finally as the judge of the Supreme Court, has been marked by a distinction that singles him out from the rest of his colleagues. His decisions evince a new approach to law and a new role for the judge, while leaving a distinct mark of his personality in all that he did. Justice Iyer did challenge established traditional values and approaches and opened new vistas of thoughts and action to promote the social engineering process in the country. His contribution as a judge, as a member of the Law Commission, and as a powerful proponent of the cause of judicial reforms is well known. It is in this background that the statement made by him in the speech should be understood. By pointing out the weak spots in the judicial system and alerting the people to the need for a change, lest the people as a whole reject the system, Justice Iyer was alerting his audience to bestow serious views who is vituperative or one. The comments made by him are not of a person who is vituperative or one who wants to bring into disrepute the judicial system of this country, but of one who is exhorting the people to bring about revolutionary change in the outlook concerning the problems of the judiciary. These were the words in the decision, judgment I am reading. After quoting extensively from Lord Denning and Edmund Davis, judges of the Court of Appeal in England, and Professor Horrell Lasky and Justice Holmes, the bench of the Kerala High Court concluded, and these are the final findings of the bench in that historic case. In these circumstances, we find no reason to issue notice on the motion. We see no reason to call upon Justice Krishna Iyer to answer any charges of contempt. The petition is closed. On law of contempt, the observation made by Justice VR Krishna Iyer at this point would be relevant in brief, which I would just place before you. He wrote that unlike the executive or legislature, whose excesses beyond the constitution may be struck down by judiciary, the judiciary and the judges may be corrected only by public criticism. The best answer of abuse of judges is not frequent or ferocious contempt sentencing, but fine performance. Justice Iyer was of the view that if the court delivers justice, which is its professional, fundamental duty, criticism loses its sting. Justice Krishna Iyer was known as the conscience keeper of the justice system in India. I wonder what would be his reaction to the present abysmal state of the apex court when allegations are being hurled with high frequency at this once august institution and on most occasions by responsible legal fraternity itself. Justice Krishna Iyer was a blessed man. He was blessed with a long life, having lived for a complete 100 years. And he made the most of this blessing by ensuring that his entire conscious life was spent in the service of humanity and poor people. Having graduated in law from Madras, he started practice in his father's chamber in 1918 in Talisheri, Malabar. A social activist, a member of the Legislative Assembly, a minister in the communist government in Kerala in 1957, a judge of the High Court in 1968, member of the Law Commission from 71 to 73, and thereafter the judge of the Supreme Court of India from 1973 till 1980, when he retired. Until almost his dying day, a strong advocate of the cause of justice in every forum, and an activist, even participating in street protests. He maintained an open house and was accessible to all who sought his help and advice at all times. Dushant Dave, the present president of the Supreme Court Bar Association, in a full court reference, remembered Justice Iyer as, I quote, one of the greatest sons of India and a legend, a phenomenon, a one-man army against injustice, and upholder of all just causes, and above all, a great humanist. Like any righteous member of judiciary, he was obsessed with the pursuit of justice. But there was a difference. His concept of justice was blended with compassion and humanity. It was justice for all, the poor, the downtrodden included. In the words of an eminent writer, he made the Supreme Court of India the Supreme Court of Indian people. Armed with a prolific vocabulary and an inimitable felicity of expression in the English language, his judgments read like pieces of literature. As it is said, he did not write judgments, he composed poetry. I cannot resist reading a few selected ones to give you a flare of the beauty of his language and the depth of his thought, although it is too much, but then I have chosen a few for paucity of time. We, in our experience, many times come across procedural deficiencies in administering justice. And in that regard, Justice Iyer guides us as to how technicalities need to be ignored if it obstructs justice in following golden words. And I quote Justice Iyer. We must always remember that procedural law is not to be a tyrant, but a servant. Not an obstruction, but an aid to justice. It has been wisely observed that procedural prescriptions are the handmaid and not the mistress, a lubricant, not a resistance in the administration of justice. How brilliantly he explains. Another example of his unconventional language as it follows: whenever fundamental rights are flouted or legislative protection ignored to any petitioner's prejudice, this court's writ will run, breaking through stone walls and iron bars to right the wrong and restore the rule of law. What a brilliant piece of poetry, as a matter of fact. For if courts cave in when great rights are gauged within the soundproof, sight-proof prisonets of prison houses, where often dissenters and minorities are caged, bestialities will be reenacted. When law ends, tyranny begins, and history whispers, iron has never been answer to the rights of men. In one case, he observed, litigants are like patients suffering from injustice, seeking healing for their wounds. Would you tell a sufferer in hospital that because he disclosed a certain symptom very late, therefore he would be discharged without treatment in the sin of delayed disclosure? Humanism which at bottom sustains justice, cannot refuse relief unless by entertaining the plea another may sustain injury. He has been compared to Lord Dennings of the United Kingdom because of his eminence in jurisprudence, his compassionate approach, his far-reaching contribution in law, and easy flow of English language. But I personally believe in the Indian context, he is unique because of his multifaceted personality and the fact that the good that he wrote and did, he benefited millions of people and will continue to do so for years in future to come. I could go on quoting from his judgments and writings to highlight the zeal with which he espoused the cause of liberty, freedom, justice, and human rights, the clarity of his vision, and the passion to provide a healing touch to the lives of the poor and the downtrodden. His pioneering work in setting up legal aid societies, the initiations of the public interest litigation, which was to become the ally of the little Indian, his innovative interpretation of statutes have all contributed to make the Indian judiciary scale the great heights. It has over the years, but all the information is available on the internet and to the seeker of knowledge and the student of law and history of jurisprudence in India. I would rather take the opportunity to highlight some personal and touching incidents from his life, from his personal life, individual life, which I have had the honor to share with him and to which people may have no access to. These are private things because of my great privilege of being with him for all along for 30 years post his retirement life. I will share with you a few instances which will shake your hearts. I was fortunate enough to spend good time in his company during the past almost 3 decades till his death. During this time, I came to know him closely. In his association, I gained considerable knowledge of criminal law and also the importance of human rights and human dignity. He was a father figure to me till his demise in 2014. His personal life had a great void. His beloved wife, Sarada, passed away in 1974 when he was just 1 year in Supreme Court. The passage of time did not heal the wound, and he missed her immensely. His love for his wife can be gauged from what he has written in his autobiography called Wandering in Many Worlds. And I quote that portion. My wife, Sarada, and I had happy span of conjugal, intellectual, aesthetic, ideological, philosophical, spiritual, and public spirited commonality of interest and 100 other common bonds. This is how, with love and affection, he speaks about his wife. He was obsessed with an idea of speaking to the soul of his beloved wife. He was trying to find any person or means through whom he could converse with the soul of Sarada. His intense search led him to a woman in Mumbai who claimed that she had spiritual powers by which she could make a living person converse with any person who had left this world. He asked me to trace that woman and, if possible, take an appointment for him with her. I did exactly what he asked me, and I had the privilege to accompany him to the private residence of that lady. This is not known to the people. This is something very private which I am conversing to on this great occasion. Justice Iyer was anxious to hear the voice of his beloved wife and converse with her. I was skeptical, but since he was so eager, we decided to pursue the course. In a private room, he was taken. Justice Iyer was made to sit in front of a table in total darkness with a candle lighted in front of him, and I was a witness. He was asked to chant some words and was given a pencil and a paper, and the experiment commenced. For a few minutes, Justice Iyer was occupied, and within minutes, the experiment ended. When he came out, I asked him out of curiosity, Sir, if you could speak to your beloved wife's soul, He reluctantly replied, not exactly, not very sure, and not satisfied. But I think he did have some hint from his wife on that night. For me, this incident conveyed the intensity of love and attachment that he had for his parted wife and showed how desperately he missed her. I have a few more personal experience with the great jurist, which I take liberty to share with you on this occasion today. After his retirement from Supreme Court, he did not take up any government assignment or professional briefs. He dedicated his entire time and life to public causes and traveled extensively to various parts of the country, at times at the expense of his failing health, attending functions, delivering lectures, etc. He used to often visit Bombay, and on each such visit, he would be good enough to inform me in advance so that I could be with him. Without exception, on all his visits in Bombay, I was all along with him. This was my great privilege. The judges of the Bombay High Court, including the Chief Justice, would be very keen to spend some time with him. And despite his busy schedule, he would try to oblige everyone. I have never heard him say no to anybody, howsoever humble the person seeking his time was. Let me narrate to you one memorable visit when he was returning to Cochin from Bombay airport. I was with him, and we were seated in the VIP lounge of Santa Cruz Airport, waiting for boarding announcement of his flight. Suddenly, an airport official came to us and informed Justice Iyer that the current Chief Justice was around and that he had learned that Justice Iyer is here. So he wanted to meet Justice Iyer. Hearing this, out of respect for CJI, Justice Iyer held my hand and got up. He told me, Majeed, let us go to meet CJI. Upon this, the official said, Your Lordship, the instructions are to remain where you are, since the Honorable CJI is coming here to see you. Justice Iyer told me, though, it is not proper that we go to him rather than he comes to us. This was his respect for the Chief Justice of India. Justice Iyer told me that it is not proper that we go to him rather than he comes to us. Within a few minutes, a crowd of 10-15 people, the CJI surrounded by security guards, protocol officers, and airport officers, was seen walking towards us. It was a memorable moment for all of you to note. We stood up to receive the Honorable Chief Justice. It was a great scene. When the CJI was at a distance of about 2 meters from Justice Krishna Iyer, we saw him suddenly fall prostrate at the feet of Justice Krishna Iyer, flat on the carpet. This was a bit commotive, and Justice Iyer was worried. He bent down and lifted CJI by his shoulder to make him stand up and say, Brother, please stand up. What are you doing? Immediately, Justice CJI introduced me to CJI, saying, Meet Mr. Majeed. He is my friend, a lawyer in Mumbai. Upon this, CJI told me, and these are the golden words which are still ringing in my ears, and I am quoting them verbatim, what CJI said, then looking at me. He said, I quote, Mr. Majeed, do you remember that this great jurist has laid down his office long ago? Years have rolled by, but not a single day passes when his name does not echo in the corridors of the Supreme Court. This was probably 13 to 14 years after Justice Iyer had laid down the office. Such was the compliment paid to him almost 14 years after his laying down the office of the Supreme Court judge. I firmly believe that this is applicable even today after 40 years of his retirement and may even continue for years to go hereafter. I distinctly recall my experience while working on an international brief in London, sometimes in mid-90s. We were working on an internationally important extradition case under guidance of a Queen's Counsel, a renowned Queen's Counsel of UK then, Mr. Clive Nichols and his team. On one occasion, while preparing the case at Gray's Inn in his office, there was a conference attended by all eminent participants, including prominent expert barristers, solicitors, and eminent juniors, and it was chaired by Mr. Clive Nichols himself, who was known as among world's best counsel on extradition matters, and who had among his clients the presidents and the prime ministers of various countries. During discussion, when my turn came, and when I started addressing the gathering, I read a small paragraph which alerted the chair. Mr. Nicholas, in his chair, was excited and asked me as to what I am reading. I informed him with pride that I read the observations made by one of our Supreme Court judges, Justice VR Krishna Iyer. So much thrilled he was that he asked his junior, Mr. Memon, please give the reference. And the reference was taken, and his junior was asked to rush to the library and get all the pre and post observations to that what I read, so that he was eager to know what a brilliant expression is this. And that was no other but Justice VR Krishna. I was proud that in UK, how they appreciated the expression of our great Justice VR Krishna. He was impressed to such an extent that he immediately asked one of his juniors to take the reference and get entire judgment for him. Another memorable incident with Justice Krishna Iyer's human aspect was when I was with him in Ernakulam. From his residence Sadgamaya on MG Road to Marine Drive near Bharat Tourist Home, we used to go by car and then walk in that area every evening. A little walk we used to make together. We used to go by car and then walk in that area every evening. While walking, we would be joined by some High Court judges, collector, and other dignitaries whose residential complex is around. One day, Justice Iyer told me that he would like to introduce to me to one of his dearest friends. I thought that, as usual, he must be referring to some judge or other important person who he probably wants me to meet. During our walk, we passed through Maharaja Law College and a temple. Outside the temple entrance, there was an elderly beggar sitting on the ground, a leper. Justice Iyer took me and sat on the ground next to him, spoke to him in Malayalam for a little while, and told me, here is that friend. I was deeply touched. I was emotionally touched, and I could only acknowledge and applaud the extraordinary humane qualities of this great jurist. The conclusion is that the best tribute one can pay to a great man is to continue and carry forward the good work he was doing, and to create a system in which our justice system continues to benefit humanity in future too. One should work towards inculcating his virtues not only in oneself and peers, but also in the youth, who should recognize and appreciate his value system and propagate it further. I'm happy that today a small step is taken by inaugurating this wing. And I'm sure that those now who have participated in this competition, certainly it would be announced that who are the winners, and those who are winning would deserve congratulations. But I would say that those who are not winning and who have participated also deserve to be congratulated for their attempt and for their effort. And I would say that young students, young lawyers must always remember that we have such an inspiration as Justice VR Krishna Iyer. And I would therefore at the end say that some people have suggested in our country to confer upon him Bharat Ratna, which he richly deserves. And I think Government of India would seriously consider posthumously if it could be conferred on him. It would be a due service to the cause of justice, and that would certainly enthuse future generation in ensuring that his legacy lives perpetually. Jai Hind. Thank you.
It's excellent, informative, and knowledgeable. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are doubly happy that we chose the right person.
And glowing
Yes.
tribute to
A votary
Justice
of
VR
Justice Iyer.
from a deserving person.